this could get awkward. President Trump is welcoming the president of South Africa to the White House today after the U.S. president made unsubstantiated claims that the government in South Africa is committing genocide against white South Africans. Will he be getting the Zelensky treatment? We're going to find out any minute now. We're now waiting for the Oval Office meeting to begin between President Trump and the president of South Africa, Cyril Ramaphosa. Moments ago, we saw the two presidents greet one another ahead of what South Africa hopes is a reset for relations. They're at a pretty low point right now, and particularly since President Trump has been in there. And the question right now is President Trump's claim about genocide against white South African farmers, frozen aid to the country, and threatening a boycott in the upcoming G20 summit there. Kristen Holmes is at the White House with more. We should say that that genocide claim is unsubstantiated. But when it comes to this discussion that they're going to begin to have, maybe they're having it as we speak, what are you hearing from White House officials about what President Trump's goal is?
Well, first of all, there are two events. So first, they're going to have lunch together, and then there's going to be this bilateral meeting. When I'm being told by officials, one person calling it a make it or break it meeting because of the fact that these tensions have really come to the surface here. As we know, U.S. officials have said that South Africa's goal is to sort of reset here. And we'll see what Donald Trump's goal is coming out of this, because this is just days after Donald Trump has continued to repeat this claim, not only just about genocide, but also particularly saying that South African farmers are being brought off their land, that they are being killed. And right after a flight of 50 white South Africans were brought into the U.S. with refugee status. So what is there going to talk about? How we're going to see this play out obviously remains to be seen. One thing to note, this is being billed currently as a trade engagement.
Kristen,
we'll see,
I'm
again,
told
how it
that
plays out.
the presidents are now meeting with the cameras there. Let's listen in.
Called him really a great golfer too, Ernie, right? You two guys are fantastic. And we could add Gary to the group, Gary Player. What a group of golfers South Africa's had on
Yes, yes.
There must be something in the water, right? It's something good. These two guys are unbelievable.
It's the water, sir.
Yeah, Gary's Gary. And David Frost, also another one that I know is such a great one.
Indeed.
Was he as good a putter as they say, David? He's a putter. He's a putting machine, right?
Absolutely.
But he's another one. So something very good about South Africa in golf, and golf is still doing great in South Africa. And they have young players, I hear, coming up that are going to be very good. But it's an honor to have you here, and my friend, it's an honor to have you, one of the greatest businessmen in South Africa and long beyond. Thank you for being here. It's very, very great honor. Appreciate it. So we're going to be discussing certain things. As you know, we have the G20 is going to South Africa. When is that going to be?
In November.
In November.
And thereafter, I hand over to you. And
yes, we have it next.
You originated the G20, so I'll hand over the baton to you,
right.
And then you lead the G20
We're
in
going
the
to have
world.
it. We're going to have it the following year.
Yeah.
So we'll be discussing many things, and some of the things you've been reading about in the papers and the media. And I would say that, look, the president is a truly respected man in many, many circles, and in some circles he's considered a little controversial. But we're going to be discussing some of the things that are taking place in South Africa and see if we can help. And we want to help. And we've had a long relationship with South Africa. I have, because indirectly I have so many friends that live there. I have a lot of friends. I mean, these are famous guys, but I have a lot of friends that live there that are tremendous people. And we'll be discussing that. We'll have a nice conversation. And I really appreciate that you guys came along. It really helps us in our thought process. But it is a great honor to have you, and I appreciate you called. He called. I don't know where he got my number, but I picked up. He said, I want to come over and see you. And that was my honor, and thank you very much for being here.
You're most welcome.
Thank you very much.
Well, thank you very much for welcoming us to this reformed White House. I've been here before, and it looks really fantastic. I must congratulate you.
Thank you.
But I also thank you for allowing our delegation. This is a very mixed delegation that you've got. We've got people from government, my ministers. I've got someone from the trade union movement. who we really collaborate with, and from business as well, and our sporting legends. When I spoke to you, you said, yes, come along and bring Gary Player, bring any else, and Retief Goosen. I brought the two of them. Gary Player, I spoke to him, and he said, look, I'm getting rather on in my years, but wishes us luck in this discussion with you. So it's a real joy, and I'd also like to thank you for allowing your people to start discussions with us at the trade level. I mean, we are essentially here to reset the relationship between the United States and South Africa. We are long-standing partners in many, many ways. We've collaborated in many fields, in space issues, in energy, and in trade, and we therefore need to reset that, particularly in the light of some of the announcements that you made on trade and investment. Right. So we want to advance more trade between the two of us, two countries, and our people now have been empowered by yourself and by myself to start engaging, and we hope that we will be able to fuel that engagement during our talks. And we also want to discuss issues that have to do with how we promote further investments in both countries. We've got about 22 companies from South Africa that have invested in the US. That's creating a number of jobs. And similarly, you've got almost 600 companies that have invested in South Africa, and some of them have been in South Africa for more than 100 years.
That's true.
So our links are really long-lasting, and we would like to recalibrate those relations between our two countries and discuss a whole range of issues, geopolitical, the work that you're doing to bring peace around the world, in Ukraine and in the Middle East. So we value that, and we are also a great contributor to peace processes that are going on around the world. And of course, we want to discuss how we can support each other. You are a much bigger economy than we are. We're just a tiny economy, but we rely on each other on a number of issues. We've got critical minerals that you want to fuel the growth of your own economy and reindustrialize. So we have that on offer, including rare earth minerals. So all that combination of opportunity and the products that we buy from you, as well as what we sell to you, I believe makes up a really good and powerful relationship, which we need to strengthen, which we need to engender. And that is really what has brought us here. And we are really privileged to have great South Africans in the mix. As you said, you'd like to see them as well. And I brought you a really fantastic golf book. Weighs 14 kilograms.
Oh, that sounds good.
And it showcases the golf courses in our country. Johan Rupert wrote preface, so did Annie else. And I want to showcase our golf courses. You might remember when I spoke to you and we spoke about golf, you said I should start practicing. And I've started practicing, President, so I'm ready. But let me end just the introductory remarks by thanking you. You may not recall that 5 years ago I spoke to you during the COVID period.
Right.
And it was at a time when the whole world was going through a really cathartic moment.
Right.
And we asked for assistance, and you were able to assist us with respirators, and you kept to your word, and you delivered respirators to us. We didn't have as many in our country, and it really helped to help us deal with COVID. So I'm here also to say thank you and to thank the people of America for having helped us during a really difficult time. Being the small economy that we are, we needed help from around the world. And you were there to provide that. So thank you very much.
I remember the call.
Yeah.
We sent 150 respirators. We became the respirator king. We started making them. Nobody had them. We had very few of them.
That's right.
But they were very helpful. But we sent 150, and I appreciated the letter you wrote me. A letter.
That's right. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I appreciate that very much.
Thank you very much for that. It really touched my heart after I spoke to you, and you delivered. So,
Great honor.
Thank you very much. Yeah.
Any questions, please?
Mr. President, we welcome white Afrikaner refugees here. Can you explain to Americans why it's appropriate to welcome white Afrikaners here when other refugees like Afghans, Venezuelans, Haitians have all had their protected status revoked?
Well, this is a group, NBC, that is truly fake news. They ask a lot of questions in a very pointed way. They're not questions, they're statements. We've had tremendous complaints about Africa, about other countries too, from people. They say there's a lot of bad things going on in Africa, and that's what we're going to be discussing today. When you say we don't take others, all you have to do is take a look at the southern border. We let 21 million people come through our border, totally unchecked, totally unvetted. They came from all over the world. In many cases, they're criminals. They come from prisons. They come from mental institutions. They come from street gangs. They're drug dealers. So don't say that we didn't take them. We take them. We're trying to get them out as fast as we can. And we're doing record business on that. And we just won a big case where we're allowed to send back hundreds of criminals to Venezuela. Just won that today in the Supreme Court. I'm happy to hear. But we do have a lot of people are very concerned with regard to South Africa, and that's really the purpose of the meeting, and we'll see how that turns out. But we have many people that feel they're being persecuted, and they're coming to the United States. So we take from many locations if we feel there's persecution or genocide going on. And we had a lot of people. I must tell you, Mr. President, we have had a tremendous number of people, especially since they've seen this. Generally, they're white farmers, and they're fleeing South Africa, and it's a very sad thing to see. But I hope we can have an explanation of that, because I know you don't want that. It's a kind of a different meeting. Normally we have meetings, we talk about trade, and we'll be talking about trade and other things. But that certainly will be a subject that comes up. Yeah. Yes, please. Brian?
Thank you very much. I'd like to get your thoughts on Letitia James. Director Polte, according to him, Letitia James says that the alleged mortgage fraud was simply a mistake. I want to get your thoughts on that. She put down that her father was her husband in word, and this is very similar to, I guess, the false attacks they had on here.
Well, I don't know what it is currently, but Letitia James, who's the Attorney General of New York State, it seemed, I'm not involved in that at all. I know it's being handled by various groups, I guess, but it's major fraud, mortgage documents, and fraudulent everything. I think she said the father was her husband, which she had to have a husband, so she chose her father, and she put it down, and she had didn't she sign in Virginia, yet she said she lived in Virginia, yet she's the New York State Attorney General, and she did that for tax reasons, so she could take advantage of taxes. And she had the wrong number of units. She had a much different number, which wouldn't have allowed her to qualify and scam the government. So I don't know. I think she's very bad for New York, but I really don't know too much about it, but I appreciate the question. Thank you very much. Yes.
Mr. President, for you to be convinced that there's no genocide.
Please.
Thank you, Mr. President. So May 25th will be the celebration of Africa Day, which pretty much a lot of celebration will be taking place around the world, including here in the United States. What is your message to the entire African continent, African people, in this important occasion?
Well, I want to see peace, and I want to see happiness. I want to see health, and you have incredible land. There's tremendous value. A lot of countries don't have that value in the land, the value you have. We have a situation, I think you probably heard about it. We've done through some very talented people, helped settle a war that's been raging for years, Rwanda and the Congo. And I think we've done it. Believe it or not, I think we've done it. And could you just say a few words about that, my friend?
Yes. A couple of weeks ago, the two parties signed a declaration of principle in which they've agreed on the way forward, and they have both submitted draft peace agreements, and we have put together one that incorporates both of their suggestions, and we've given it to them. So we're in the process of finalizing this peace agreement. Right? Looking very good.
No, we have to thank you for even those efforts, because the African continent, particularly SADC, our Southern African Development Community, has for years been seeking to foster peace in the Democratic Republic of the Congo. So all efforts, including those from outside the continent and inside the continent, are really worthwhile. We are removing our troops from there so that peace can then prevail in that whole area. And we hope that with the support of the international community, we will...
We're going to continue to monitor this meeting between the President of the United States and the President of South Africa in the Oval Office. As we do, we're going to discuss what we have heard so far. I will just start by saying that Peter Alexander of NBC News asked the question, and that question, important one, is about the fact that while refugee programs are being stopped in the United States by the Trump administration, while, as the president repeated again, they are trying to remove as many of those previously legally allowed refugees in, never mind undocumented immigrants, they're allowing white Afrikaners from South Africa to come into the United States. Legitimate question, and you heard part of what the president said. In answer to that, David Chalian, kind of turning it back to the immigration lines that we hear a lot from him, but sort of underlying all of that is what he admitted is going to be part of the tough conversation between the two of them, which is that you have a lot of people in his ear and in that room, Elon Musk being one of them, who is suddenly back in Washington, who are making allegations against this president's government, and they claim that the whites in South Africa are being discriminated against. He even used the word apartheid, a new apartheid.
Genocide. He used the word genocide, and that is a debunked claim. There is no evidence of a genocide going on in South Africa. That doesn't exist. And yet the President of the United States, sitting in the Oval Office next to his counterpart, just used that as a term, not that he was necessarily accused, but like that's been talked about the way that Trump does with language. Dana, not only did he welcome the ability to talk about this topic, he said this is the purpose of the meeting. I mean, you heard the South African president come with a whole list of things, as we were discussing, like very well practiced brief here, like the decorations in the Oval Office are great, and let's talk about trade, this important issue to you, and where our countries can work together.
We brought you a golf book.
Yeah, a golf book.
And the golfer.
And the golfer, exactly. But this issue is not one that the South African president brought up, even though we expected this to be. The president of the United States said this is the purpose of the meeting. And so we didn't get the South African president's response to that. I don't, obviously, we've heard him previously, he doesn't think there's a genocide going on in this country and doesn't see the facts for that either. So I'm not quite sure how that meeting then takes place, where that conversation goes from there.
And it was interesting that the South African president very well could have jumped in to say, no, that's not true. But he, like every other world leader on the planet, saw what happened when Zelensky did that in the Oval Office.
Yeah, because, I mean, it would mean explaining the history of South Africa to Donald Trump. He doesn't apparently know that part of what's going on in South Africa is how do you address the fact that the majority African population had been oppressed for generations and generations, and their land taken away, and an inability to move forward in society for decades and decades and decades. And the South African government is trying to right that wrong. And so this idea, I think, that these white South Africans are the oppressed really, I think, dovetails with Donald Trump's role as like the patron saint of white grievance politics, right? He is the defender of white people here. He's also the defender of white people in South Africa. So he is welcoming them as oppressed. He can't see any oppression of black folks in South Africa. He can't see any oppression of anyone else who might be coming from South America either. Their oppression is invisible to him. What he really feels and what his base really feels is this idea that is actually white people, be they in South Africa or be they in America, that are oppressed. Okay.